where 80 characters are. I'm still trying to fit everything into 80 characters.
It's really hard in Java.
80 characters. No, it's 140 today.
No, it's 80.
132.
Okay.
I still do 80.
It's 80 with one line.
144. You need the tweetable line.
Right. So let me just tell you one thing. We're now live. Okay.
Okay.
So we are now live.
They were
So,
talking about software development.
yeah, we are.
80 characters.
Right.
VI. And,
Okay. So I'd like to welcome you, all of you. This is the first installment of the Code4Life broadcast. We're going to do several of those. We are here visiting several cities in Germany and in Europe in general. We're going to go to Switzerland and Spain. And today and yesterday, we are here at the the JCP meeting, the Java Community Process Executive Committee meeting. And so I have three amazing developers right here with me that we're discussing the future of Java, and we're going to discuss all kinds of things. So I want to, first of all, I just want to make sure that you guys that are watching us right now are hearing fine. So if you can say hello, if you can say you are hearing fine, if you can say something, so just make sure that we are broadcasting nicely. And while you do this, I will introduce our guests. We already have 20 people here online, so that's going to be pretty nice. And so here I have with me Simon. I'm going to start from that point right there. Simon Ritter. So Simon is a very well-known person in the Java community. You've been a Java evangelist for many years, right, Simon?
I have, yes. Yep. Like 15 years.
Right. So it's a rock star at Java 1, right? So, and you're now at Azul.
I am. I work with Gil.
You work with Gil. So what are you doing at Azul?
A lot of it's the same as what I was doing at Oracle. I go out and I talk to Java developers, and it's still about promoting Java. It's still about actually getting developers excited about what's happening in Java, and getting them interested in what are the latest things that are going on, what are the things that are going to be coming up in the future. Just making Java ecosystem a success, really. Cool,
very good. So if you're going to talk about what's going on in the future, I think everyone wants to know what you think is the future for Java. In a minute. No? Okay. So just there's a lot of people here. So Chusar said hello. Arak said hello. Stefan said, oh, it's good. So lots of people hearing you very well. Thanks, guys. So I also have here with me now, Simon's boss, right? Jill Tenney. And Jill is an amazing guy on the Java performance area. He's been giving talks all over the world about how to improve Java performance, and company that does your own Java VM. That's kind of the dream of every Java developer, to be able to do their own VM, right? So how, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I don't know if it's a dream of Java developers.
It's a dream of C developers.
They want to run a good JVM, but certainly a lot of engineers in general, I like to describe what we do as Azul as a toy store for engineers, right? It's really easy to recruit because you get to play with these things that most people won't get to touch, right? JIT compilers and garbage collectors and priorities and threads and little cool things, and then you get to measure how it's better.
Right.
It's just like, it's all about, if you can win in some way, that's great. So yeah, JVMs are cool, and making a really good JVM that's kick-ass is really good too.
And it's hard to do.
Yeah, if it wasn't hard, it wouldn't be worth doing, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And I also have here Chritoph, right?
Just make it Chris.
Chris, yeah, Chris. So I have, yes, it's a lot easier, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So Chris, you are from Hazelcast, and Hazelcast is doing amazing, also performance discussions, right? But scalability, you're able to help scale applications to very, very large environments. So what do you do at Hazelcast?
I'm basically manager developer relations, which means I'm working on getting the community excited, getting the community engaged by showing them that we actually appreciate, that we care for them, and that's basically it. That's
pretty cool. And it's interesting that we have here a very diverse community in lots of different ways. So Simon is from England, right? Jill, you're an American?
Well,
kind of.
Technically, yes.
Technically, yes, but you live in the US, right?
Yeah, no, I was born in the US. I live in Israel.
Okay.
In the US, but I also grew up in Israel.
Oh, okay. You grew up in Israel.
Yeah.
Okay, so even more interesting. You're German?
Yep.
And you live here in Germany?
Right.
Right. So, and I'm from Brazil. So, and my name is Bruno Souza, and I welcome all of you. So, where are you from? Right. I have here lots of things. Otavio, Otavio is here, manning the camera, and he's saying that he listens to us as if he was in the same room.
This is really good video conference.
Yes.
It's like so real. It's
right.
Okay.
Hangouts really made the thing.
Yeah. So Inyats is from London, England. Let's see who else shows up. So thanks, guys, for showing up. It's very nice to be here with you live and doing the discussion. So I'm going to start. We are just finishing a discussion about the JCP and everything. And I'll start with a lot of us here are Java developers. And one of the things that everyone always thinking about, I get this question a lot. Should I still invest in Java? A lot of people are starting to learn Java and say, should I learn Java? Should I learn something else? Is Java the best language for me right now? So what do you guys think about, is Java the best thing for our careers as a developer right now? Or,
I'd say it's one of the best things. I mean, it's difficult to be absolutely definitive about this and say, Java is absolutely the best thing. I mean, well, it is, according to me, but that's very subjective. But no, I mean, if you look at the surveys, if you look at some of the surveys that come out in terms of, how popular languages are, and often the way they measure the popularity of languages is all about looking at how many job adverts there are, how many things there are on Stack Overflow, how many GitHub, things like that. Java is always kind of number one or number two on those lists. And I think that means that if you're looking at what should you do in your career, one of the kind of key things to look at is, how many jobs are there going to be available for you? So training in COBOL is probably not going to find you a whole lot of jobs.
It gives you the expensive ones.
Or training in Algol maybe won't find you something.
Okay, that's true.
But Java, there's going to be a lot of different jobs available for you. And one of the nice things about Java is it covers such a wide range of things. So if you're interested in writing, applications for embedded systems, right, you can do that. If you're interested in writing desktop applications, you can do that. If you're interested in enterprise applications, you can do that. So there's many different things that you can do with Java once you've got the kind of basic skills. And that's why I kind of say that Java is a really good platform, really good language to learn if you're interested in that as a career.
I think.
So before you say anything, Jill, so we have here people from Poland, people from Serbia. So thanks everyone for watching us from all over the world. Thanks.
But I think that beyond just, obviously it's a good platform to know, to learn. I actually am not a strong believer in telling people to pick a language. I mean, languages are just tools. And you should be able to know what the different ones are, understand some of the flavors. It's a good lateral education for any software engineer, rather than pick a religion and stick with it.
Right.
But when you look at, why does Java have legs? Why does it have a long past and a long future ahead? I think one of the easy ways to look at this is what is going to displace it? And someday there will be something that will displace Java. Java took over the world 20 years ago. In the span of about 6 years, it killed server environments, except for .NET. It did a pretty good job of containing that, but it completely eradicated C and C++ based application development and moved those to be things that are used for system programming.
They're originally intended for.
Yeah, but I've coded in machine code and assembly and C and C++. I've learned a lot of interesting stuff and mistakes before I went into Java. I've played with all the dynamic languages and the interesting, inference-based languages and really cool stuff. But when I need to pick a tool to build in, it's usually C or C++ or Java, depending on what I build. If you're building a JVM, most of it is in C++. If you're writing kernel modules, nothing but C, and very simple C. And if you're building an application that actually needs some business logic and something bigger than a hash, than maybe a red-black tree and a linked list as data structures, you probably want Java.
Right.
Now, there are other really cool ones out there, right? The things that will kill Java and replace them, right? Like the LAMP stack and Ruby, right? Those are going to replace Java, right? And no, I mean, they came and they went. And we're now in the age of Python and JavaScript being really cool, and they really are cool.
I'm
And
not so sure about JavaScript.
I'm not so sure
yeah,
about
Visual Basic was cool, wasn't it? And this is the same thing. I mean, it's got an event loop, and you write really simple code in it, and even if you don't spell exactly right, it does something.
It
I mean,
does.
it's this.
Well, it always does
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
If you look at JavaScript, it always does something.
Precisely, right?
It doesn't make sense
It's
all of the
gotta-
time,
yeah.
but it,
But honestly, I mean, people write some really cool code in JavaScript.
Yeah.
true.
And
People write cool code in PHP, and I have no idea how they do
machine
that.
code. And machine code. The actual test to me is when you go and build something that you want to say ship, support, maybe have still work 6 years from now, and most importantly, be able to hire people to work on.
Yeah.
It's really hard to find people to work on the LAMP code that you wrote 8 years ago and on the Ruby code that you wrote 6 years ago. It's currently nice and easy to write people who work on your Python code, on your JavaScript code, and on your Java code. Hard for C and C++. The thing Java has going for it is throughout its history, it's been easy to hire people to work on it, even if the code is not just a year old. So if you build something today and you expect it to last more than a couple of years before it gets rewritten and replaced with the cool new thing, something that has those legs is important.
Right.
Which
That's
is why
pretty cool.
we often see people convert from a initial prototyping of something cool in a Python, JavaScript, and others to a JVM-based language often that will last them for 10 years.
I also think what is important not to forget about is a lot of people say that Java might be the new COBOL. I actually don't think so, because that would mean that at that point there would be no new software written in Java, right?
Well, actually, I think Java is the new COBOL. We're in the 1960s. This is the golden age of COBOL, Java,
Okay.
and we just haven't seen that thing that will replace it yet. There will
So-
come one, and it will make Java look like COBOL. We just haven't met it yet.
So now we make the common distinction between the JVM as a platform and Java as a language, because there are still quite interesting languages on top of the JVM.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So let me, first of all, there's a Tushar showed up. He's from Nagpur in India, right? So we're really reaching out to people all over the world.
You don't
So-
have anybody in the North Pole, though.
No, not yet. Not yet. We're gonna get there.
Yep.
So
He's busy preparing for winter.
Intimias says that he's an aspiring developer and he learned the basics, but he says he's not hireable yet, right? He's not job worthy yet. So he says, what's my next step to become a developer? I have managed to get on an open source project, but I'm very new at all of these.
Yeah, I was going to say, see, this is the advice I always give to people when they ask me this, which is, how do you go from, okay, I've done a Java course, now I know how to program in Java, but how can I then go to an employer and say, well, look, I'm a Java programmer, hire me? And the easiest thing is to get involved in an open source project. If you get involved in an open source project, you can do it at your own pace, you can get involved to the level that you want to, you can put as much effort into it as you want. And then you can go to an employer and look and say, look, here, this is the project I've been working on. Look at all the commits I've done, look at the work I've done, look at what I've designed in this. And it gives them a really good way of understanding what you can do as a developer without having to go and work for somebody in order to kind of get that experience. So it's a way of getting experience without having to find a job. So it breaks that cycle of chicken and egg.
I just think that
just one-
GitHub as a resume is a good way to look
Yeah,
at it.
right. But this works both for the guys that's starting, but also the guy that's
I
experienced
just,
developer,
yeah,
right?
well, I think it also works for the companies. So looking at Hazecast, how we hire developers, we often look at the people that are very active in the community, contributing, and you definitely know what those guys can do. You know their knowledge level, and that is definitely good for your companies as well.
Yeah. So I actually think those are very valid points, and they're good points on a resume. But if you're a beginning developer, an aspiring developer, I think is what you said, I would say build stuff quietly in your own room, not out on the web where your employer in 5 years will be able to see the terrible code you're about to write. Build stuff, have it break, make mistakes, and learn from them. And the things that you do put out in open source, either your own things in open source or participating in other things, this is something I wish everybody in open source did. Remember that this will last forever, that 20 years from now, people will be able to see the code you put out there and make it look good. And to do that, you need to build up the experience of doing bad stuff to the point where you're comfortable actually showing your things. It is important to actually build things before you participate.
Right.
But I think what you can't forget about that is that you actually have people reviewing your code. You need to listen to their advices.
It's a good way of learning.
Yeah.
And
So-
but there's also even I totally agree with you. I think you should break things first, and I think open source is a good way because you can download the source code from a project and you can break it many times, right?
Yeah.
Before you actually do any contribution. I think that's the way you should start, right?
So, well,
Sounds like
I think
customers.
that's some of it, but honestly, the most people, I believe, learn from their own mistakes better than from anybody else's.
Right.
And starting with other people's code is not a good place to start making
Okay.
mistakes. Just the right way is to go build something. Say,
Mhm.
and build something, hey, there's this one, I want to make one just like it. It doesn't have to add value to the world. It's an exercise. But play with it. Make it better. Do something cool and make it your own.
Would agree up to a certain level.
Well, I'm not saying go build an entire operating system.
No.
I know exactly what you should do. JSON library.
Oh man.
For HDR Instagram, right?
Yeah.
Actually, we should do a
another
contest.
one.
I want 20 of them, and I'll pick the best.
There you go.
Yeah, that's
We'll give you a
outsource
t-shirt.
it, Yeah. Yep.
All right, let's switch gears a little bit here. We got a question here from Drazen that he says, what does it mean? I think Simon, that's for you.
Okay.
More than anyone else here, right? But Chris, I think you and Simon are the ones for this one. But
Okay.
I think me and Gil were last than you guys on this because it says, what does it mean to be a Java rockstar or a Java champion? And do you need to drop your social life and family in order to become one?
I'm sorry. I'm neither. So this is absolutely.
Okay, so I'm not a
You're a
Java
rockstar.
champion.
I'm rockstar. Yes.
Yeah, and we're three rock stars.
We're three
Oh,
rock
yeah.
stars.
You see,
We
I'm
all
the only
are.
one.
But I'm saying that we try to keep our families, right? Those guys here travel all the world all the time, right? So it's like
Yeah, so I mean, I guess I'm a Java rockstar in the sense that I got the Rockstar Award from Java 1. So
Yeah.
you know,
I'm saying we did too.
yeah, right. That's where. So basically, first of all, that's what a rockstar is, right? A Java rockstar is someone that went to Java 1, made a talk that lots of people like it and voted for him or her, and then you get this rockstar award, right?
Yeah, there's a Java Rockstar Wall of Fame or something.
Oh, yes, there's-
on the
oh.
Java 1 site.
Right.
Yeah.
So yes, and
Okay.
then
all the
So that
rockstars
sounds
from all the
not
years.
like
Right.
something I need.
Yeah.
And-
Well, no, you get a little cube, like last
Yeah.
cube.
Java
they put
1
a little-
rockstar thing.
No, it's a little Duke inside.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
I
you
don't
want
need
that.
the wall though.
you've
Yeah.
got a nicer one than I did. I just got a little piece of paper in mine.
and then he also asked a Java champion. So a Java champion is a person that evangelizes Java, that promotes Java. It's an author, an open source project developer, or someone that gives talks, or Java group leader, someone that really contributes back to the community and gets selected by other Java champions. That's important,
And
right?
it doesn't work for Oracle. That's the other.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. Yes, yeah. So one time, oh man, I forgot his name. I'll remember in a minute. And he told me that you can only call yourself a hacker if someone else, an existing hacker calls you a hacker, right? So I think the Java champions are more like this, right? Okay.
It's
All right. So
where'd the first hacker come from?
yes, that's. So the first hacker was
created this term.
the first hacker was
Chicken and egg.
no, the first hacker was building trains, right? Because the
Yeah.
term hacker comes from trains. So the first hacker is doing this, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway,
So to answer the question, actually, no, I don't think you have to give up your life to sort of
Not
devote yourself
completely.
to Java. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time. Like I said, I've been evangelizing Java for the last 15 years. And yeah, I mean, I get to travel a lot, which is great because I really like traveling. But I try to balance that with the fact that I have a family at home, and so I spend time with my family, and that's all good. And I'm trying to get my son to learn how to program in Java. And so yeah, I think in terms of like getting involved, one of the great things is Java user groups.
Mm-hmm.
And as Bruno knows, because he runs one of the, if not the biggest Java user group in the world, that's a great place if you're interested in kind of doing stuff. Again, to put on your resume, put on your CV. Get involved in something like that, because you can research projects, you can research subjects, and then you can learn how to present at your Java user group, and then that can lead you to getting to present at conferences, and so you can kind of build up from there. If that's the kind of thing you want to do. I mean,
on the other side, I think you also need a wife that actually is
Yeah,
okay with what you're doing,
yeah.
right?
Isn't that true regardless?
Well, good point. Good point. Yeah,
That's a good point. Yeah.
might
So-
be.
So Stefan, I think he researched that probably on Wikipedia, because he's saying that there were two first hackers calling each other a hacker at the same time.
Right.
Yeah.
So Gil, you run a company, right? You know, all of us here are more like day-to-day guys, but you run a company. How do you run a company? How do you contribute back to open source? How do you give talks everywhere around the world? You participate in the JCP-EC and so many other things. How do you do all of that at the same time running a company and having a family?
So I just fake it. It
You
doesn't
fake
really
it.
happen.
So you have
So
hologram.
to start with, I'm not the CEO. I'm the CTO at Azul Systems, and that means I've outsourced all that stuff to the CEO.
Good.
And then
that's a
what
good
I'm
way of
also
doing it.
really good at is designing my responsibility and what I get to do in a job. So I very carefully design things,
I
having
need to learn
founded
from
Azul.
this.
So I have very few actual direct report things, right? In fact, I managed to make Simon not report to me.
Oh, okay.
He is my
So
he
he's
is my
not your
deputy
boss.
CTO, but I don't have to deal with his expense reports.
Okay, cool. That's smart.
Unless they go through the roof and stuff, right? We have a CO, we have a VP of engineering, we have a very strong engineering organization, and I get to bug everybody and mess with their plans and go sit in the cubes when I need to, or go sit in a boardroom when I need to, and it's a lot of fun. It's a very matrix kind of touch things. I used to manage people directly. I used to run much bigger things, and I've decided that in that trade-off between managing and worrying about an entire company and a accounts receivable level and actually doing technical work, something has to give. So I focus on the technical things. I focus on the internal technical things at Azul and a lot of external developer interaction and material. You basically have to give up on some of the things that, if you want to run a 200-person group, you're probably not going to write a lot of code while you do that.
Right.
And I like to write code.
Right. So basically, for you to grow, the way you're growing your career is that you focus on the things that you think are important.
Yeah, and I'm fortunate to be able to do that
Mhm.
because it's not a typical position that there'll be a couple people in the company that get to play that game.
Right.
But if you can get there, that's what I highly recommend it.
Right.
Now, if you look at a path of how to get there, build good stuff. And like I said, make a lot of mistakes, learn from some of them, build more good stuff. And I look at what I look for in hiring people. Yes, there's supporting resume things. There'll be, what kind of open source contributions they have these days, what's their code look like maybe, what activities are there in, what do other people think of them. But my number one thing is, do they build stuff? Like I would much prefer to hire somebody out of college or even not having finished college that spent the last 2 years stuck in labs building stuff, over somebody with a perfect GPA that has not written anything other than an assignment.
Mm-hmm.
And the difference between them is I like to take on people who've made mistakes and learn from them. And while we do hire some very young people, we recognize that when we do that and they have no practical experience, they're going to make a lot of mistakes here first.
Right.
And to me, experience only comes from having actually burnt yourself.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I think hardware engineers know to kind of not cut bread into their hand is because something has happened once they've done that, right? And I'd rather not have them learn it on my dime.
Right. Yes. Okay. That's
So do
pretty
that
cool.
in your garage, but do a lot of it.
So since you went to this direction of hiring people, I think you're the most experienced here of the team on this. And you said what you look for people, but what do you ask when people sit on an interview? Do you actually do interviews, or you just see what the guy's doing
That's
online?
secret.
And
You want to give away the secrets?
Oh, come on, just give us what kind of
So
thing you look
personally-
for a person when you're interviewing them?
So I've actually built a handful of questions that I like to use on the technical side.
So you do have a technical interview.
I do like to do those. I often get them filtered before me now, but to me, it's not about can you do exactly what I want you to do or all that. It's finding things that will let you see how people think and what they do, especially in an open-ended situation. One of my favorite interview questions came from my daughter asking me a question I didn't know the answer to. So I decided that's a good interview question. She was 5 years old and she said, "Daddy, how far is the moon?" And
I know the answer to that. It's 250,000 miles.
I need to double check on that. It's not the number that matters. It's the realization of, wait, so I don't quite know, but I should actually be able to figure it out based on common knowledge that I have. How do I figure it out? Let's walk through the process. And I actually would sit with people through that and see, okay, I mean, give them whatever physics equations they might have forgotten, or whatever constants they might have not known, and all those. But it's the how do you get from basic knowledge to figuring out how far the moon is. There are many techniques to do it. Figure one out. And turns out not like without going to Google, you should be able to figure this out if you've graduated high school or college and have done a little physics. And see, this has nothing to do with computers, but it has to do with thinking. If you are able to do that, you're also probably able to figure out where a bug is, or analyze a system down to the parts of what's broken here or what makes sense.
Because you're saying a very interesting point, right? Because actually, when you put a problem like this that's completely outside of the day-to-day of a developer, for example, if he's able to show how he thinks, right? Because most times when you see a bug, for example, you actually don't know what it is, right? Because if you knew, the bug wouldn't be there. Right? So a lot of times we developers, we approach problems that we have no idea what they are, right? And so by being able to think about a problem that we have no idea, that shows.
And to give you a great example of stuff in an interview, I've had the opportunity to interview people who, you ask them about their experience and you ask them questions about what they did. Tell me about stuff you've done. So when I talk to somebody who's programmed in C and C++, one of my first questions, second, third question would be, tell me about a time you had to debug a core dump. And if they say, I've never had to debug a core dump, that just means they haven't written enough code and they have no experience whatsoever.
Right.
Because no way is anybody ever written code in C and C++ of any magnitude that has not crashed with a segfault.
Right.
I know that from the JVM. By heart.
So some people, maybe there's somebody talented enough to write perfect code before they ever made a mistake, but I haven't met them yet.
Exactly.
Yeah. So experience usually comes from doing bad things.
Right. Sure.
And it means that it's the good things to ask about. Tell me about the bad things you've done and what you've done.
Do you tell this to your kids too, that they should do bad things first?
Anyway, I do have this very strong dilemma with, suppose, they lie.
Yeah.
Then there are two things you want them to learn. One is don't lie to me. The other one is don't get caught. And because that, come on.
Right.
You really want to teach them to never, ever lie? Have you met anybody sane and successful in the world that got away with doing that? What if they need to insult somebody?
Right.
Is this where the Trump quote comes in?
Yeah, we should do that.
Okay. So Chris, I think I have a question for you. So you are a developer advocate, right?
Yeah.
So you talk with a lot of developers all over the world. So Max, he has an interesting name, Barba Negra, right? So Max Barba Negra here says, who are your favorite developer and why? That's important. Why? So, I'll talk a little bit here. So you talk for all kinds of developers all over the world. So you can think. You can think a little, Otavio's saying that's him.
Yeah, sure.
So you can think a little bit. So, we talk with developers all over the world, right? And we look for, like the same way you're looking for interviews, we look for things in other developers to make friendship. And so what is the guys that you say, oh, this guy, I really like him. He's a good friend, a great developer.
I don't think I can make it down to a single person.
That's okay.
I think there's obviously very similar towards. I think he's one of the best developers we have in this world, at least from where he started. So I really think he's one of the best ones.
No, he didn't ask the best developers. he asked your favorite developer.
Yeah,
Right?
that's
Do you
what.
want to be like him? Is the
No.
question.
Yes, now, do you want to be like him?
Well, no, maybe
No.
not. Maybe not. Wow.
You don't know enough words. Bad words.
but I have fingers.
That's true.
Well, what developer would I look forward to be like? I don't. To be honest, I have no idea. There are so many different developers. Maybe a mix-up of a lot of those people.
Right. What kind of developer you want to be?
I actually think that Peter Loris is a very good developer.
Mhm.
I'm really looking to what he does. He has a very in-depth knowledge of concurrency and those things. I think you are an amazing developer. You all right. I'm just working on my next job though.
Yes.
Going around the interview question. Because you know a lot of stuff, even on concurrency, but on the hardware level. I mean, you designed a CPU that basically made it possible to implement the C4 garbage collect in the first place, even before it was possible with, or before you found a way with x86. Let's see, who else? I definitely think James Gosling.
Yeah, I was
Right.
going to say,
Yeah.
I'm going to
Mr. Java.
I'm going to state the obvious, which is James Gosling. But
Yeah, it's too obvious.
The reason that I actually like James is because, one, he's a very down-to-earth guy.
Mhm.
And so he's very approachable. He doesn't have this kind of aura
Attitude.
of I am so great,
Yeah.
I know everything, and you're just
Right.
a lowly developer.
Right.
He's very approachable.
He is.
Everyone can talk to him, and he's really interesting. But the other thing that I really like about James is just, I don't understand how it is he can be so productive. I mean, he just seems to be able to come up with stuff and just bang out this code at a phenomenal rate. And I think to myself, I sit down and I start writing code, and it's like, I'm never producing code at the same rate that he does. So that's the thing I find with
And the
him.
cool thing with him is to look at all the work he did before Java.
Right.
Yeah,
I've used a lot of it.
Yeah.
I actually look at people who influence what I do. Like if I learn something new
So
from
that
somebody
seems
else who
like James Gosling.
practices.
He definitely influenced it.
Yes.
Oh, I mean, like I've coded like this, and somebody pointed out something. Now I don't code like that anymore. That's a
Okay.
very interesting way to listen. And I wouldn't put it as favorites, but I'd say people who've influenced. And I just look at the last few years. Martin Thompson is somebody
Oh, yeah.
who's I've definitely like. I actually have him. The way Martin reviews code is he changes it. So you can actually put little traps to see, like the way he's been there, as you put things that he will take away. And like his favorite thing to do in Java, for example, it's one of his nitpicks is all parameters to methods need to be final. It's a useless, meaningless, it doesn't add anything, right? Most people don't put it there, but if you give him code that doesn't have a method with parameters and they're not final in the declaration, he'll put final in there. That's how you know he was there. And I found that after interacting with him, I've changed my coding style to do the same. It's a very interesting. It's something that shows you've made mistakes. You found something that catch the mistakes and prevent them in the future, and you do them. I've managed to learn from his mistakes, I guess.
That's nice.
In that sense. And I can think of a few other people that have affected code that I write that way.
Okay.
I like the fact I like the way you put it, like people that actually influenced me.
Mhm.
I don't think there's a single person where I would say, wow, that is what I would be like, because it would always be like a matchup of a lot of people.
No, because as developers, we know that the code we write is the best.
Right.
No,
Sorry.
I don't think so.
Yes.
And I'm honest on that.
That's
I don't
why we
think
don't
so.
show
There's
to a lot of
always
people, right?
somebody who's better.
So actually, there's a guy that I like a lot as a developer is Bill Joy, right? So I'm not sure what he's been doing lately, but and he has a law that's named after him. This is the law, the Joy's law, that says, no matter how big you are, the
Most smart people
don't work for you.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Because outside of whatever company, it's larger than inside. So I think this concept is what makes Java so powerful, right? Because it's just not just one company doing Java. It's a whole ecosystem. I think this concept is what makes the Java user group so powerful, right? Because we're not just one person trying to do everything. So I think this concept around Java that we can reach out to a larger community to do things. I think it's what influences all of us in some ways.
I think that goes back to the first question, why Java is actually still a good investment to learn, because there's a huge ecosystem working around Java, growing around Java, and it's still growing.
Yeah, so I would actually, one of the things I would say is, without trying to be apologetic or non-doomsday about Java, Java is a very good language and a very long-lasting language because Java is very easy to read.
Yeah.
Now, the important thing is it's easy to read. A lot of critique of Java is that it is hard to write. There's a lot of mess and you gotta get it right. But to me, and I think this is exactly why I tell people, go make a lot of mistakes and then learn. I look at what I did when I was young. I played with C and C++. I was so excited about C++. I used every feature. Operator overloading is amazing, right? I mean, I had an operator for everything you wanted, and it made sense in the context of my project.
You definitely love Scala, do you?
No. See, I'm talking about when I was young. Now, it took me about 3 years to realize how stupid that practice is.
Okay, I should have waited.
When 3 years later you try to look the code from 3 years back,
what
right?
I did,
have
the
no idea
practice was, here's a project, let's have the right operators for everything, the math works right for this, and so basically you create a DSL in C++ for your project. And after you do this for more than one project, and you've done it for 3 projects, and you go look at code, you don't know what it means because you don't know which project it's in.
Right.
You can't read the code. It's got implicit behaviors that you've put there, and you don't know what plus equals means for this.
But does solve having non-operator overloading, does it solve it? If I call the method plus at, well, add is obvious. Plus.
So it's not just overloading, but the lesson there is, it's really cool to write.
Yeah.
It makes sense in the context, but it's not readable 3 years later, even if you wrote it.
Right.
It's sometimes not even readable next day.
Right. So if I can't read code I wrote it badly. And then you apply the same test to code other people wrote.
It's like Perl. Perl is the same thing.
It's very interesting. Yeah.
So does Perl even have a syntax beside regex?
Not that I was.
That's optional.
So I think you said a very important point, Gil, because really a lot of things we learn and by listening or reading or seeing what other people did, right? That's how we learn music. You don't start playing music by creating your own music, right? You start by listening to a lot of music to see if it's good or bad. And everything that's creative, you don't have it's not a question of this thing is good or it's not good, right? It's always a question. It's better than the other thing, right? Creative things are
subjective.
It's subjective, right?
Yeah.
So the way you learn something that's subjective, and software development is creative. So the way you learn something subjective is looking at a lot of existing things, right? So the fact that you have a language that's easy to read, like Java, allows you to read a whole lot of open source projects, allows you to read a whole lot of source code from other people and see what's and kind of create your own ways of doing things, right?
One of the things that kind of like is oxymoronic about software development is it's both subjective and objective. Right. Because the way you write your code is subjective. Do you write nice code? Do you write beautiful code? The way you lay it out is very subjective about whether people like that or not. But it's very objective in the terms of, does it actually do what it's supposed to do?
Right.
And that's it either does or it doesn't.
I think that is also true for it's boring and very interesting at the same time. Writing code actually is not an interesting thing, but solving problems is actually the interesting thing about software development.
Yeah,
I don't think so.
I don't know. I'm not totally disagreeing with you. I'm just thinking to myself, I like writing code.
You love solving the problem.
No, I like solving the problem as well, but I actually like writing code as well. Because I like to.
You should look at BrainFact 3D. You can make amazing code out of that.
I'm very fastidious about the way I write code, and it's got to be absolutely laid out perfectly, and everything everything's commented, and it's.
You write Python.
I'm completely obsessive.
You're talking about Python.
But he doesn't mean the spaces have context.
But come on, Simon. Most of the code that you write ends up in a big screen.
Yes.
Right? I mean, presented to thousands of people, right? So, you have to be extra careful.
I actually think this is what GitHub has done really good things for the world, because when you put stuff there, eventually other people will see it.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to look at how you hacked something at home, you thought nobody would ever see it. And before you put it up, you find yourself cleaning it up.
Right.
At least a little bit.
I don't do that. I don't, because when I write it has to be,
But that's what I mean.
Because you're going to show it, right?
And then you evolve to code without that step. But a lot of the early code I had written, I would not want anybody to see it.
Right.
That's exactly the point. There's the mistakes you can make. Look, I mean, this is a taste and thing, but I do not like DSLs that do not have thousands of users. I think a DSL with 5 people that know how to use it is going to die in 2 years. And similarly, I don't like inference. I think that I think Scala is really, really cool. It's proven that dynamic languages are not needed. And why did it prove that? Because you write the same code and it's a static language, therefore the dynamic language wasn't actually needed. Not that there's some really cool dynamic languages out there, but
JavaScript.
But when I look at Scala, it is hard for me to read. I understand it perfectly, but I find that my brain works 10 times harder to understand a line of code in Scala as it does in Java. Or unless you are in this mode of, I trust them. I kind of sort of see what they meant to do here. I don't really know what it does, but that's what they mean to do, maybe. My reading of code is, what does this do?
Right.
Yeah,
and if it has implicit behavior, if my brain has to do the inference that the compiler has to do, it's slower. I can't read a screen full in one shot.
It's like that famous piece of code in the Unix kernel. I remember it had a comment above it, which is, you're not supposed to understand this.
Well, the fork join pool kind of looks like the same.
But that's a clever thing. I have this rule that says, as you said, you like to write code, like to solve problems. After I write code and solve problems, the first thing I do before I put it to bed and say it's done is I say, okay, cool. Now how can I do this much simpler? If you do something clever in code, that's a strong hint that you did something wrong. And yes, it works, but how would you do that without having to jump through hoops and being clever? And in 2 weeks, would you remember this cleverness and understand it, right? If you have, how can I do exactly what this does, but now let's do it simply.
Right.
And that step is the maturation step in code. And when you do that, you end up, commenting it maybe, or better yet, it doesn't need comments. Because the names are good and it sort of makes sense and it's simple, right? It's not doing some magic bitwise math that happens to work that needs a block comment this big to explain why the math works. It does the 5 steps separately and it's easy to follow, right?
Okay, so Manuel here is asking us, what are the ways or resources that help you keep up to date? Because we are in a world that's crazy, right? The new things coming out all the time, all kinds of new frameworks, new languages, new information and new bugs. So how do we keep up to date with all of that?
I think the first question is, do we keep up?
Do we?
I don't know. I sometimes feel like I miss a lot of stuff.
I don't feel like.
Do we have to keep up? That's a different.
Well, at least to a certain extent.
To some extent, I don't think anyone can keep up to date with everything.
Right.
So I think it's
maybe
trying to keep up. Or
There's a lot I don't.
And
Yes.
You try to keep up with. My way personally doing it is I get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and I spend about an hour just surfing the web and reading articles and stuff like that as my way of waking up. So that's kind of you just have to keep looking at stuff and reading stuff.
Right. It's like you're too sleepy, so you see this, very crazy things happening. The brain wakes up, right?
Yeah, I can absorb more stuff fresh in the morning.
Yeah, well, works pretty well.
But you just like on the script that he's saying, do you have any special resource that you look for? Twitter or
yeah, I just wanted to say that for Twitter works good for me. So I normally don't try to find things because other people find it for me.
Right.
You just need to follow the right people.
Right. That's what I like about Twitter. Yes. Yeah. I think the best thing about Twitter is that you choose what you follow, and then.
And I think in in this term, I'm very uncommon. Looking at other people having about my follower size, they normally tend to have way less people there following themselves. Whereas I like to use Twitter as my information source or main information source. So I'll have like, I don't know, 700 people.
Oh, you follow a whole lot of people, right?
Yeah. But if you look at my tweet deck, you see I have a lot of different columns with very special and very organized. Well, that's probably the only thing I organize. Very organized keywords and search terms.
Okay, interesting.
I think that the other thing is, it is probably useful to understand enough about new things to establish not a deep, but an educated enough opinion about them or knowledge about them. And what I would warn people is don't use other people as intermediaries. You can listen to other people as to what is interesting to look at.
Yeah, okay.
But don't use them to tell you what it is. You should look at it yourself.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I think Rust is really cool. People, but I've been interacting with somebody writing actually a port to Rust of HDR histogram. So looked into the language, and there's a lot of really cool stuff there. But I don't think I could, if somebody explained it to me, that's not learning. That's just starting point.
Right.
And then from that point, go dig into it. We live in a world where you can find out anything and you can play with anything.
I think that is actually a quite interesting point, because that is what I design my own presentations for. I try to engage people to look at the topic and not try to teach it to them, because it doesn't work. Especially not if you're at a conference, a 4-day conference. There is just no way to remember everything from every talk.
Right.
So it's better to give them an engagement, show them, hey, this is cool, and make them look at it at their own pace at home. Maybe if you really engage them even overnight and they come back on the next day and ask you some questions like, hey, I looked at this tonight, and why is that?
Yeah, people say that, when you watch a presentation, you remember at most 20% of it, right? So when you go to a conference and you remember 20% of 20% of the talks you watch, right? So like
20% of Java 1 is free talks.
Right? Yeah. Well,
Maybe
anyway.
Still 300, I don't know.
It's a lot. But I think, look, this is funny for us to say, especially since all of us give talks.
Right, yes.
Don't use other people as intermediaries.
No, but that's why it's our job to actually inspire people to go look for some things.
Yeah, right? It's all like I try to avoid doing, a tutorial on how to do something. I like to talk about subjects and like concepts or explaining how something works. But it should always be the starting one. Now take that and go dig into it yourself. Go figure out the details. Go look at code. Go read books, whatever it is on it. But there is no substitute to actually touching the thing. So you want to form your own opinion about dynamic languages. Write some dynamic code.
Feel the pain.
You want to you want to form your own opinion about C. Write some C code and write some. Go through the steps of doing it. I think C is a great language, by the way, and I think that it's probably the most. People like to point out to Java is great and it helps avoid bugs, but fundamentally the most reliable software we have in computers is written purely in C. Still, people have tried to write operating systems and other things, and none of them have succeeded.
Even in Java.
Right? Yeah, the kernel of the operating system is today almost universally written in C or some equivalent, not even C++, and it's kept simple. And simple is a key goal there. Now, that environment tends to be a lot less productive. The rate of innovation in code that needs to be that reliable is fundamentally lower, but it produces things that last much longer.
Okay, so this conversation is really, really interesting, especially because we just run a conference in Brazil, like an online conference called the TDC, the Developers Conference, Full Stack Developer, right? So I was exactly thinking about to ask you about, because you're saying about learning about everything, it's keeping up everything. So every time we talk about this, someone thinks about developers need to know everything, and we have even the term full stack developer. We just did a conference with that term. And Carl, that's watching us, he's really reading my mind because he asked a question about this specifically. So thanks, Carl. It was right on time. So he says, do you think the concept of full stack developer is useful, realistic? Do you have many experience working with developers that are great at everything rather than being experienced in particular areas? Can developers switch between all job roles and still be productive, great quality, produce great quality deliverables? So do you guys think about the full stack developer?
It depends to some extent on what you mean by full stack developer. Now, to me, full stack developer means somebody who understands all the different layers of a particular stack, but not necessarily all stacks. So I mean, if you're saying
horizontal, not vertical.
Yeah, I mean, if you're saying that, let's take a really simple example, LAMP. So you've got Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP, or whatever. That's a stack.
Whatever the P is.
Right. Whatever the P is in LAMP. But that's a stack. Now, I think that you can have a developer who can understand all of the elements of that stack. Same as, you can understand all the elements of the ISO 7-layer model for TCP/IP. So yeah, I think that you can certainly understand all the elements of a stack. But
is a PHP developer a database administrator? Probably not.
Yeah, well, probably not. But I think that you understand the basics of it. I mean, let's face it, we've all done database administration of some form, haven't we? We've all done like web server administration of some form. You've all done these little bits and pieces because you've been putting stuff together. So I think it's quite possible to have a basic understanding of all the elements of that, and then your expertise is obviously in a particular area as to what you're doing for your application.
Would you consider that you're as productive in one area as you are in the other? I don't think so.
Oh no.
So I think that is what full stack developer means. You can basically switch between all the layers, between all the different parts of the stack, and you're as productive as everything else. And at least from my personal feeling, I would say I'm not. I'm a backend guy.
Right.
If you make me write UI code, it will look crappy. The UI will look crappy, and I'll probably need 10 times as much time as everybody else.
But
I mean everybody.
But do you really think a full stack developer is a guy that can work in our areas the same? The question is, can he work in our areas productive, or he can be unproductive in our areas? Right? What exactly is?
So I think the term full stack, or where I see the term full stack developer, most of the time is coming from web development. I haven't seen a single Java full stack developer yet. At least not that I know.
If you just Java, why?
Well, there still you can build server side, you can build the network stack, you can build UI application. You could be a full stack developer, but I think in web terms it's more like JavaScript, HTML, JSON, and maybe XML and all this other crappy stuff you need for websites.
RPC.
Yeah. So what
RMI.
Exactly. Our experience running the TDC full stack developer events was, first of all, I think there is this concept that the full stack developer, like Carl saying, that is a guy that can be productive in all areas. But usually, what we see a lot of times is the developer that is like single focus in one thing. So he knows how to do the UI, and then you tell him that this needs to be saved in a database, and he's not exactly sure what that means, right? And so I think this ultra specialization of developers, that they can't see outside of what they're doing, that they can't really discuss everything else, right? So they say, okay, so what I'm doing here is it's so important. I don't understand the caching on the back end, right? So what I do here is actually interferes on the cache in the back end because I don't know what caching means. So I think the full stack developer, just to finish this, so I think the full stack developer is someone that's able to understand the whole concept.
So you're going more in the direction of what Simon said.
Yes, more someone that understands the whole. He may not be extremely specialist in our areas, but he's very good in one thing that he does. But he's able to sit down on a table and discuss the architecture of the whole thing with all the rest of the team. And I think this is what makes a developer more productive.
So look, I think to start with, a lot of really good developers that are very focused in a narrow field, and there's nothing wrong with that. So I don't think that there needs to be a goal of doing that. I certainly look at myself as somebody who likes to play with lots of different things, and I like doing that, and I appreciate that in other people. A way to look at this is ability versus experience, or maybe experience that is very specific, meaning I can do that again, versus experience that you can take and learn from one thing about another thing. Most strong engineers that I know break things down as a problem. And you put them in a completely new domain that they know nothing about, and 3 months later, they are the experts. Those are really strong engineers, and that would, which ones have they developed expertise in? Doesn't really matter. What they did 10 years ago, I don't, when I look to hire somebody like that, and we need a few senior people like that, I'm not looking to find somebody who did what I need from them today 10 years ago, but if it's the hopping across fields successfully that to me is a good indication that somebody has that ability. They've worked in this, then they worked in that, then they worked in this, and they did well in all.
Okay. Cool.
Because to me, that generally means the next thing they do that they know nothing about right now, they will do well. And the ability, developing the ability to do that is more important than understanding the parts of the stack.
Right.
Does that also mean like a special grade of innovative behavior? Do you think so?
It's either innovation or understanding. It's the way people approach problems or look at understanding the whole.
Yeah, especially because the previous question was about how we keep up with everything, right? And so really, the really good guys are the ones that are able to learn something new and apply everything they knew before to this new knowledge, because there are lots of things showing up.
I used to have this saying, it needs to be translated because it came from Hebrew when I worked 27 years ago back. I used to call it, you need to learn how to disrespect the problem.
Okay.
The first step to solving a problem is to disrespect it. Once you disrespect it, you just say, I'm going to solve this. Then it's just, the hardest thing is getting over the fact that you think you won't be able to do it. And once you do, just break it into pieces. You're going to figure it out. Right?
It's kind of getting over the fear, right? Because a lot of people don't do things because they're so afraid that they're not going to be able to do it. They don't even try.
I like to say, at Azul we make a really cool JVM. It does great things to GC, but I do not go around telling developers, you can't build your stuff without my thing, right?
Okay.
Now, why? Because that's just asking them to do it.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Nothing that challenges
Asking
more
problems.
to say you cannot do that. My favorite things to do is to solve unsolvable problems.
Right.
And it's really cool. Once you've shown that something doesn't have a solution, 2 days later you find a solution. And so it's the first step,
Yes.
You're basically asking for problems.
Yep, exactly. So I like to see is what we do helps people get places quicker, not you can't do it without us. You can do, there's nothing you can't do without Java, and there's nothing you can't do in Java.
Okay.
Including pretty much anything in software.
Cool. Very cool. So guys, we're almost at the top of the hour here. So before I thank you, everyone, just do you want to give like last things you want to say, last ideas, or who wants to start? Just.
Okay. I just want to say we had this discussion yesterday at the Java user group. Jigsaw is out there. Jigsaw is merged into Java JDK 9. Go and try it. It will most probably break your software, and it's important that you try it now. And also make comments when something broke and you figure out there is an actual problem in the JDK.
And the goal is hopefully enough comments and enough tweaks and changes, and it'll stop breaking stuff.
And what I'd say to that is watch my presentation that's on the YouTube and what have you on JDK 9, and then test your software. Understand what the problems are first, then test your software.
Right.
Or maybe do it backwards, but first break your software, then understand why.
And then get the lucky feeling that you understand what is actually the problem.
So there's one last question here. I think we still have time to answer this. So Max asks, so why aren't more people making more games in Java? And he says Minecraft aside.
Why not? Why not?
Well, I think Minecraft is a good example of a very, very powerful that everyone uses.
I think that you would be surprised if you look at Steam. how many games actually are written in Java
I think
without
so,
you
yeah.
actually realizing.
Mhm.
I'm very active in the javagaming.org forum, and there are, I think, at least 10 or 12 developers having their own games on Steam and actually living out of that money.
Mhm.
They're not as big as Minecraft, and they're normally not considered to be AAA games.
Mhm.
But this, as I say, you would be surprised how many games actually written in Java.
Yeah, that's
The
a
other
weird
thing is,
industry, right? The
my,
games industry.
my feel, and you know more about this, but I think there's in gaming you have the actual game on whatever
Mhm.
device you have, but then there's the back end.
Yeah,
Right.
And
that is the
and I
second
think
point.
that I believe that in multiplayer gaming the back ends tend to be dominated
Yeah.
by Java.
Oh yeah.
Not that. So I think we're in the process. Especially a lot of those social media games and things like Mobile Strike, they often tend to have Java backends.
Yes.
The really huge MMORPGs still have mostly code written in Java in C++. I know that some companies started to use D language because it's a mixture of Java and C++. It gives you the good feeling of Java code and the maintainability of Java code, but still the native compile of C++.
Yeah, remember our friend Matthias, right? He works for the
Yeah.
company that makes Candy Crush, right? And,
Yeah.
and he gave a presentation Java one showing how everything in the back end of Candy Crush is all Java based.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
So I can speak for Ubisoft. I work for Ubisoft, and I know that some of these social games definitely use Java. A lot of these social games that Ubisoft produces.
Cool. Okay, so back to just so we answer all the questions. So thanks, Max. So back to the so you guys decided to talk about Jigsaw as the last. So you really think that for Java developers, you decide everyone comment on it, right? So you really think Jigsaw is the next big thing that's in terms of learning, and because will developers actually interact a lot of with Jigsaw? I don't think they will, right? What do we?
It's not so much. I mean, it doesn't affect the language so much. There's kind of one thing that you have to get used to, which is the fact that public doesn't necessarily mean public anymore.
Mhm.
So it changes that. But from a language perspective, things aren't really changing in that in the way that they did in JDK8. But it does have more of an impact on how you design your application, how you package it, how you deploy it. That's the big.
I think
it should help with things like version dependency problems where you depend on two libraries, they depend on some library but two different versions of the same library. How the hell do you deal with that?
Right.
It doesn't solve that problem. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
so
It doesn't solve exactly that problem.
Well, it does. Yeah, it does solve certain problems like that because you can specify the dependencies explicitly.
But you can't have two versions of the same dependency in the class, right?
No, there are limitations on what you do, but you could say, okay, I've got two modules which depend on two different versions of the same.
You at least get information.
You could do that without any problem.
It won't solve the log4j problem.
No.
Nothing will solve.
Well, so it's interesting because on Java 8 we had lambdas that was really something that affected the way we write code, right?
Yeah.
And then on Java 9 we have Jigsaw that will completely change the way we deal with the VM, but it won't affect too much what we do, right?
So I think Jigsaw is cool, and it's certainly a tremendous amount of work. But I actually think that people tremendously expect way too much of it.
They overrate it.
It will rearrange things inside the JDK in a way nobody will care about in C. Unless, I mean, it's not going to make things smaller than Compact 1, and you're probably still going to have a whole area or JDK. So it's nicely modularized in there. It's good for JDK developers. Are you really going to experience it that much from that
I
side?
think it depends. So
I think the important thing to say is that if you take an existing application and you want to run it on JDK 9, so long as you don't use any of the non-public APIs, so long as you're using all the standard APIs that are available in Java SE, it will work without any problem.
Right.
So only once you get into the area of
that's the claim. Doesn't work at the moment though.
Yeah,
I mean, when they get to the release,
where you're out. When it
right.
The point is, inside the JDK, it's doing a lot for the JDK internals, but not the ones you would get exposed to. However, it will give you new ways of packaging your software and modularizing your own software. Whether or not you need that, there are existing solutions. And one of the things I like to point out is, of the different environments out there, Java is the one with some of the best packaging capabilities. It's in much better shape namespace-wise than a Python or JavaScript is. So the effect here is not on how you write code, and it's not that much on how you ship code. I think there are things in Java 9 that will have much bigger impact on your daily life than Jigsaw will. Like the fact that Java 9 is going to have a REPL.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is so much bigger to me than Jigsaw.
I agree.
Now,
I totally agree.
it's not nearly that's not a declaration of how much work it is, but you know.
What about spin lock hint?
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. There's
Yeah, yeah.
a few methods.
Well,
yeah.
But one more point on Jigsaw. You said it's probably not changing everyday life. I think that basically depends on what you're building. For looking at us as a company building a library, Jigsaw definitely gives us a very nice benefit. The same benefit that the JDK becomes, or the JDK gets. You can hide internal implementations. You won't have people.
Look, I think that Java has needed the notion of, say, friend classes for a really long time. The fact that
module scope, whatever you're gonna call it.
The limited scope,
Yeah.
public within my scope without public to everybody. It
Absolutely
really has
agree.
been needed. It cleans up the way you write code and maybe APIs as well. But I don't think it's fundamental to how most people are going to
No.
right?
As I said, I think it basically depends on where you work.
It's one of those. It's a healthy improvement of the infrastructure.
Yeah.
But not so much of your daily coding practices. And yeah, there are there's other cool things that are coming, but I think that Java 9 from a developer feature perspective is probably not. It won't be nearly as big as Java 8 was,
Right.
or Java 5 was.
So I think
it's more like Java
probably
7.
Yeah, probably the most successful, the biggest success of Java 9 will be to actually run the things exist, right?
Yes.
That's because that's the main goal, right? We're going to run everything that exists. We're going to change it. Basically, what we're going to do is that we're going to change the VM completely, right?
Yeah.
And then
without
without breaking everything that's running on top of it. So
I
it's an amazing feat.
We can measure success by how few things get broken.
Right.
Yeah. I actually like the sentence that Gil yesterday had at the Java user group, where he said it's basically Java 7.3.
Yeah. So,
in this case,
Java 7 was broken into pieces, and then
Right.
there's the first half of Java 7 in Java 7. The second half of Java 7 came in Java 8, and Java 9 is the third half of Java 7.
But I think what was more important was the fact you afterwards the afterwards said is, if we would have it in Java 7 or 8 Jigsaw, we probably would still stick with Java 6.
Yeah. We'd still be waiting.
Okay. So guys, we are a little bit over the time here. I think we can talk about for a long time. I know. So first of all, I'd like to thank you for watching us here, but I'd like to thank each one of you to take the time off here at GSP. So what's your next step? Where are you guys going? Head back home? What are you going to do next project? Just like quickly goodbye.
Yeah, I'm going back home, and then end of next week I'm in Bulgaria for J Prime.
Oh, cool, nice.
Tomorrow I'm heading back home to Palo Alto, hoping to get some sleep.
Yes.
Jet lag. And there's a lot of stuff on my plate. One of the things we've been trying to figure out what's the right license JSON library to use from another library.
Oh man, okay.
Maybe somebody can help with that. And then interestingly, I'm looking to convince somebody to write a JavaScript port of HDR histogram. If there are any volunteers, I wrote the Java version. There's a C version, a C# version, a Go version, an Erlang version, a Rust version, and a Python version. Yeah, but nobody's done a JavaScript version yet, and I don't want to be the one to write it.
You want to why? You're talking about JavaScript.
Yeah, but I really want one. I really want one for a browser. So if there are any volunteers out there, it seems to be something people like to avoid. Yeah.
How about you, Chris?
Well, we're going basically to prepare the webinar for next week. So Azul and his
talk about the webinar next week so people can join.
We're doing a great webinar. You will learn a lot. Not as intermediaries, we'll tell you about stuff, and then you can go read on it. I think we're doing a joint webinar on Hazelcast and Zane.
And why that makes sense, what it gives to the people that actually use this combination, and where can it help you solve problems you would have with either single solution.
It's both the scalability and robustness and features of Hazelcast, but also if you want to apply that in environments where you want consistent responsiveness, good user response time or latency, not just sometimes, but all the time, and then get scalability and everything with it. And we have some hopefully nice things to say together.
Obviously.
What day?
Like
Tuesday?
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
Tuesday.
Tuesday, yeah.
Tuesday, whatever.
Yeah.
All right.
I think 7 p.m.
Yeah, so you could go to
UTC.
one of our websites, either hazelcast.com or azul.com, and find out more about it. Our marketing people hopefully have stuff up there.
Yeah.
I think so.
All right. Okay. So thank you all, and I'd like to thank you for watching. Let me just remember you that this is the first, and it was an unplanned one because the first one was supposed to be tomorrow. So thank you for taking the time. So it's the first broadcast that we're doing for the Java tour around Europe. So tomorrow we're going to be here in Germany, in Dortmund, with the Javas group there, and tomorrow at 2 p.m. Germany time, noon UTC time. You figure out what time is in your home. But at the same time we did today, we're going to do another broadcast. We're going to do every day of the week. So please join us and spread the word to your friends. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.